Hi everybody, my name is Terry. Thanks for tuning in. In this episode I will mainly be demonstrating how not to change the rear tyre on a Matchless G3L WD. This is number 3 in a series of videos where I overhaul the bike. If you haven't found the first 2 videos, then please go back and look at them and you'll see how we stripped it down to get it this far. Okay, we need a new rear tyre. The front tyre is fine. Thankfully, the tyre company haven't gone out of business, so Ensign Universals are still for sale. I think they're a great tyre. They look kind of army-like. They're knobbly, but not too much. They make a good road holder as well. And so that's what I'm going to put on, a new rear one. Arrived within 2 days, very reasonable price. We need to jack up the bike at the back. You'll see we've got a rear stand here, but it gets in the way. That has to come off to allow the rear wheel to come out. So I got myself a nice new jack stand, which I paid for with the proceeds of some previous work. But to make room for it, I'm going to take off the kickstand first. That's simply a spring and a nut and bolt. The spring which holds the rear stand up is really strong and it can be a little bit tricky to take off. I favour using 2 screwdrivers, and you can use one screwdriver as a lever and the other as an axle or a fulcrum. And by doing that, you can create enough force to pull it off without creating any damage or scratching the paint. There's a bolt on each side which holds the rear stand into the frame, and note that the washer here goes underneath the head of the bolt, not underneath the nut. If you put it back with the washer underneath the nut, you will never get the bloody thing up and down. So just remember that for when you put it back together. Now with the rear stand out of the way, you can see there's a nice big space to get the wheel out, so let's undo the axle nuts, one each side. Now I'll push the axle through with my thumb and pull it out from the left hand side of the bike. As you do this, on the near side you've got the speedo drive and a spacer which will fall away, and on the far side where I'm standing there is the brake hub, a spacer on the inside and on the outside of that. That's not very good practice, me dropping a speedo like that. I was in too much of a hurry. Anyway, with all that done, we can safely move the wheel out of the way and start thinking about the tyre change. Now the rear wheel is going to be off the bike for quite a long time. I'm going to do all the separate bits of work involved with the overhaul and then reassemble the bike pretty much all at once at the end. And so that we have a stable platform to work on, I'm putting the rear stand back on and then I'm going to lower the bike. Then we've got 2 points of contact at the back, and that will help me to work on the bike safely. Before I take the old tyre off the hub, I'm going to put a hairdryer inside the new tyre and just leave it on a low setting, and that helps to warm it, make it nice and pliable for later on. Now to the old tyre on the hub, I'm going to take off the valve cap and then use a valve stem remover, really cheap tool on eBay, I think they're around 3 or 4 quid. And undo the valve so all the air rushes out and we get a nice soft tyre. Now I'm just going to apply some tyre paste with the brush around the inside of the tyre and the rim where we're going to slide the tyre off, just to make things nice and slippy, available from any good motor factor. As I'm doing this, if you look in my little box of tricks for tyre changes, you'll see a little tub of talcum powder. And you might ask yourself, why aren't I using that? And that will come into play later because I should have used it. Next I'm putting a couple of tyre protectors on the rim close to the valve, because that's the first place where I'm going to leave the tyre off, and so that'll be the point of maximum tension and I don't want to scratch the rim. If you don't have these, they're not very expensive. If you don't have them, you can just cut an old plastic Coke bottle up or something like that and then use a heat gun or a hairdryer to force it into the right shape. So with that done, we'll use a tie lever and we'll get a little bit of the bead up and over, and then hold that into position and get the next lever in. And once you've got 2 in there and up and over and you make a bit of a flap, then it won't peel back and you'll be able to work your way around the tyre and get it all off. After the first couple of levers, you don't really need those rim protectors anymore because there isn't enough tension to cause enough damage to scrape the paint. Now we'll reach into the tyre gap that we've created on the opposite side to the valve, take hold of the inner tube and start to gently feed it out because we want to use it again if possible. And we'll keep pulling it out until we get to the valve itself. Now this is normally secured by 1 or 2 nuts that go down the valve stem, so we'll undo those and then we have to push the valve stem up into its recess and pull it out. What you'll find on the other side of the rim, laced over the top of the valve stem, will be a little collar to help, a dished collar to help hold things into place. So just watch out for that when you get the inner tube out, that you don't lose it. Now we'll work the other bead of the tyre off. You see I've put one tyre lever in and I've sort of got it between my legs there so it doesn't allow the tyre to slip back on, and I'm gently levering it off as I go around. And the trick to this is that the bottom of the tyre, the other bead is right in the middle in the recess, because if it's up next to the edge of the rim then it creates tension, but if that edge of that tyre is sitting in the middle of the recess then you've got the geometry working for you and you can just gently work your way around. And after you've peeled off the rim a certain amount, maybe halfway, then you can just pull the whole thing off with your hands nice and easy. Now I'm going to give the rim a good clean using some WD-40 and some paper. This isn't as important as a tubeless tyre, which has to be absolutely gleaming and spotless, but it's good practice, and also it helps you to go in there and have a good look and see if there's anything sharp in there, anything that might harm the inner tube. So we'll just work our way around. You'll notice that there is a sort of a rubber stroke butyl band in the middle of the rim as well, and that also helps to protect the inner tube. Now here's the new tyre, which has been sitting with a hairdryer inside it for the last 20 minutes, so it's nice and warm and pliable, and that's kind of ideal. Putting tyre paste around the beads, because those are the things that need to slip as it goes over the rim. These tyres are called universals because they go on the front and the back, no difference between them, and it doesn't matter which way round they go, there's no rotation arrow. You'll notice there's a white painted spot on the rim of the tyre close to my knees. That marks the lightest point of the tyre, and that should go to the heaviest point of the rim, which in theory should pretty much be where the valve is. And this is where I made a huge cock up, and I'm leaving this in the video because other people hopefully can learn from my silly mistake and not try and repeat it. So excuses first. It was the end of a long day, I was in a hurry, the wife was just about to come home from work, I was trying to get it done before she arrived, blah 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 blah. Alright, but no excuse. So what I did was I just shoved the inner tube in, put a little bit of air in it without being too careful how much I was putting in, and then I started working it on with the tyre levers, not really doing the amount of preparation that I should have done. And in trying to save a couple of minutes, I ended up making a big mistake. That's because I was levering the tyre on and I nipped it with the levers. As I did that, I could hear a little bit of air come out. I thought, oh my god, I hope I haven't nipped the inner tube, but I definitely had, and the tyre went down overnight. So I put the tyre on yesterday and I was pretty sure that I'd nipped the inner tube when I was peeling the bead over, and sure enough, it's gone flat overnight. So that's what happens when you do things in a hurry. Fortunately, I do have a spare inner tube, so off it comes. We'll do it again and do it properly. Okay, so to remedy this and hopefully set a good example this time, break the bead of the tyre and warm it up with a hairdryer, apply tyre paste, and then we're going to get some talcum powder and just put a little bit in. I'm probably using too much here, on the inside of the tyre, and then swirl the tyre around. Now the reason I use talcum powder, and this works really well, is that rubber sticks to rubber, especially warm rubber. So when you put the inner tube in and you put a little bit of air into it, you want it to gracefully inflate and not stick or ruffle or wrinkle anywhere where it's more likely that the tyre lever will nip it. And a little bit of talcum powder is really good for this. I see I can use way too much. I'm just pouring the excess out now, and then I'll go and tip that outside in the garden. Now I'll insert the new inner tube in through the gap, starting with the valve, not forgetting the little collar that goes over it, which sits on the inside of the rim. Then we'll push the rest of the inner tube as evenly as we can around the rim and into the tyre. Now I'm going to put some air into the tube with the foot pump. Now the aim of this is to make the inner tube a little bit rounder, because where it's round, where it sits against the rim, it'll form a curve and it'll be a little bit further away from your tyre lever as you put it in. It should also help it, especially with the help of the towel, to distribute itself evenly around the inside of the tyre. But you don't want to put too much air in, because if you put too much air in, then that will work against you when you're trying to get the bead over, because it's going to be pressing in the opposite direction. So you can see here I'm experimenting, I'm putting a little bit of air in and then feeling it, making sure the tube is just far enough away from the rim, not so much pressure, it's going to make it harder to put the tyre on. And that is the key to getting it right. I've decided not to use those yellow rim protectors now because it's quite a soft tyre and doesn't require too much tension. But what I am doing as I'm starting to use the levers is I'm going to push down on the near side with my knees and just force the bead on the near side down into the gap, and that's going to help me get the right amount of tension on as I work around and have the geometry working for me. So over by the knees first, then the knees on to hold the bead down into the well, and then gently around with the tyre lever, not going too far in any one go. And you can see the tyre's nice and warm, and just working it from each side, not taking too much at any one time. And there it is, tyre's on now, no dramas. And now I'm going to pump it up, and I found that 28 psi works quite well for these tyres. Time to clean the tyre now, and this is very important, not just to get the tyre paste off, which would be quite slippy, but also that you can inspect the line that goes around near the rim. Now, when you look at the tyre, there is a line, a visible line that goes around the outside here. And when you've got to put a new tyre on, if you ever get to a point where you can't see that line, and I can't see that line, basically it disappears here and re-emerges here, it means that part of the tyre is not seated properly. And if we switch it around, have a look on the other side, again I can't see the tyre line from here to here. Everywhere else it's visible. So that means that we've got to put a bit of overpressure on here. So I'm going to get the compressor going, blow some more air in, and that will just blow that properly up onto its bead. Now the tyre will be marked with a maximum pressure. As a guide for this, I found that you can go up to 60 psi quite safely without damaging anything, and that should be enough overpressure to move the bead nicely onto the rim. If it doesn't work, then there's one more thing that you can do. And in this case, it's moved the bead over nicely on one side, but there's still a small gap on the other, and I don't want to go any higher than 60 psi. So this is what we do. Deflate the tyre completely by pressing on the valve. There's no need to remove the core as you might do with a tubeless tyre where you want to really blow it on hard. Just deflate it until you can squish the tyre when you press it down. Then go to the area that's a problem, press it down with your hands and just get a little bit of tyre paste in between the tyre and the rim so that when you re-inflate it again, there's less friction there and it will go on. Then back on with the compressor and all the way up to 60 psi again. As we do this, everything comes on and the bead slips on nicely, and now when we inspect it, we've got the solid line all the way around. And this is really important because if you don't do this, when you set off down the road, then you'll get a real wobble on the tyre. It'll feel completely unbalanced and quite unstable. Now we'll let the tyre down again and then pump it back up to the operating pressure of 28. Well, on the list of things that need doing on the overhaul, that is another small step forward, so that's good news. Well, there we go, I made a big mistake, but at least I acknowledged it and I've learned from it and we can move on. Hope that was of some use. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next episode as we continue to overhaul this Matchless G3L WD. Ride safely.